A very warm welcome. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. Now, a Russian fighter jet collided with a large US surveillance drone over the Black Sea on Tuesday. It was a rare but serious incident, one that triggered a US diplomatic protest. This collision happened between the MQ-9 Reaper drone and the Russian Sukhoi 27 fighter jet. Now, Russia and the United States have expectedly blamed each other. Concerns have also been raised about the possibility that Russia could recover sensitive technology. But US and Russian officials have had conflicting accounts of this collision. In fact, the Pentagon spokesperson has raised the possibility that the Defense Department could eventually declassify and release the video of this collision. Defense officials in the United States said that the drone has not been recovered, but the Pentagon declined to say whether any effort was underway to gather debris or pieces of the Reaper drone.
Again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of what's on this particular aircraft, other than, again, it's an ISR platform. Because of the damage, we were in a position to have to essentially crash it into the Black Sea. To my knowledge, at this point in time, the Russians have not recovered that aircraft. But again, in terms of our recovery efforts, don't have any updates to provide right now.
And so it should be noted that this is not the first time that Russian aircraft have flown so close to US aircraft in the Black Sea, prompting the Pentagon to publicly condemn the incident for putting the crews at risk. But here's what we know so far and what is certain about this crash. First, let's begin by telling you what the United States has to say. The US has, of course, blamed Russia. The US Air Forces have called the actions of the Russian pilots unsafe and unprofessional. In fact, US President Joe Biden was also briefed on this incident by the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. This, according to White House National Security spokesman John Kirby. And Kirby has added that the US State Department officials would be speaking directly with their Russian counterparts and will also express concerns over this unsafe and unprofessional intercept.
You know, we are continuing to assess exactly what happened, but I think based on the actions of the Russian pilots, it's clear that it was unsafe, unprofessional, and I think the actions speak for themselves. What we saw, again, were fighter aircraft dumping fuel in front of this UAV and then getting so close to the aircraft that it actually damaged the propeller on the MQ-9. We assess that it likely caused some damage to the Russian aircraft as well. So in terms of Secretary Austin talking to his counterpart, not at this time. To my knowledge, DoD officials have not spoken specifically to Russian authorities on this particular incident. I do know that the State Department is raising our concerns about the incident directly with the Russian government, so I'd refer you to them for details on that.
And were there any radio calls between radio communications, either from the Russians or from the United States?
Yeah, so on the latter part of your question, no, none that I'm aware of.
In the meantime, the Russian Defense Ministry has said that the US drone was flying near the Russian border. As per the Russian Defense Ministry, it intruded in an area that was declared off limits by Russian authorities. Russia has said that the Russian military scrambled fighters to intercept the US drone. Russia has claimed that as a result of sharp maneuver, the US drone went into uncontrollable flight with a loss of altitude and collided with water surface. Interestingly, Russia's ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, has said that Russia wants no confrontation with the United States. Let's listen in to what the Russian ambassador to the United States has to say.
This drone can carry 1,700 kilos of explosives. This drone can carry a few bombs. You see that what will be reaction of United States if you see such Russian drone very close, for example, to San Francisco or New York? What will be reaction of United States? For me, it's clear. For you as well. And American mass media could show us in a very unpleasant way. We don't want any confrontation between the United States and Russian Federation. We are in favor of pragmatic relations for the interest of the people of the United States and Russian Federation.
Although no lives were lost, this incident has arrived as a reminder of the risk of direct confrontation between the United States and Russia over Ukraine. Moscow invaded over a year ago, but Ukraine's Western allies have supported it with intelligence and weapons. The use of drones or unmanned aerial vehicles in and around war zones has been going on for decades. But the Russian downing of the US drone has certainly marked an escalation of confrontation near the war zone. Many are seeing this as a worrying development. Here's what Tom Caraco, who's a senior fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, has to say. Let's listen in.
It certainly sounds like a Russian pilot was horsing around and deliberately trying to destroy what they're saying was a U.S. MQ-9 drone over the Baltics, over the Black Sea rather, and so this is a provocation. It's probably something of a test. The Russians, of course, don't like the fact that we're flying, admittedly, in international waters there, and they're expressing their displeasure. So it's pretty obvious why they're doing it. It's clearly an irresponsible act, nevertheless. And so we'll see how it develops. Yeah. So the news reports are an MQ-9. That's probably an MQ-9 Reaper. I'm not sure exactly the model, but these are, frankly, some of very widespread, widely used, let's just call them trucks that can carry any number of payloads. They've been used in the war on terrorism for hellfires, but also for ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance to surveil and spy. But again, these are essentially versatile UAV trucks, and you can put all number of things on them. But it's a pretty common drone. Well, unfortunately, the Russians kind of think of the Black Sea as their own lake. Legally speaking, it is international waters. They don't really like that fact, but it certainly, from an international law perspective, insulates the United States from any kind of allegation that we were into Russian airspace or something like that. Well, there's been quite a lot of drone and counter-drone activity in and around Ukraine, just absolutely tons of it. And it's really been, I would say, one of the most widespread conflicts with not merely UAV but counter UAV activity, and so it's really advanced the activity, but continued the activity we've seen in the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict from a couple years ago and the like. I will say also there's another precedent to think about here, and that is, I think it was during the Trump administration, Iran shot down a U.S. Global Hawk, which is a very large drone that we use for surveillance. We were operating from international waters there as well. Sadly, the United States did not respond. President Trump chose to countermand a kinetic response to that clear shoot-down of a U.S. aircraft. And as a result, you saw an escalation of Iranian activity in the months that followed that led up to back and forth the targeting of Soleimani, and then after that, the firing of Iranian ballistic missiles into Iraq at U.S. bases. So I don't think that this is going to lead to that, but nevertheless, I do think it suggests the need for some kind of firm and clear response on the part of the United States. You know, I think number one is going to be the firmness and the clarity with which the United States responds. Identifying it, we don't want our own weakness or indecision here to be perceived by the Russians as an encouragement to try something else and test us on something else. You've had so many statements over the past year about, defending NATO territory and all these other things. We don't want any kind of in the gray zone kind of activities to further test where exactly that line is.
And that's all I have for you in our special presentation on the Russia-Ukraine war on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching News 18.